A few weeks ago, we talked about the all-new Polar Pacer Pro, but Polar actually announced 2 watches that day. They also announced a more affordable Polar Pacer with a lot of the same functionality, but at $200 instead of $300. So in this video, we're gonna go over exactly what you get with the new Polar Pacer. We'll look at GPS and heart rate accuracy, a few other competitive options on the market at a similar price point to this, and ultimately, whether or not this watch is right for you. Now the Polar Pacer is a really nice slim watch. It's 45 millimeters in diameter and about 11.5 millimeters in depth. The screen is a 1.2 inch display with 240 by 240 pixels of resolution, and Polar has increased the quality of the screen a good bit, so it's much more visible than some of their previous models. Now the lens glass is a Gorilla Glass 3.0, which you might be familiar with. It's probably similar to what's on your smartphone, but it should be somewhat durable and somewhat scratch resistant. Now the watch is nice and light. It only weighs 40 grams. And the new Pacer comes with a faster processor, so overall navigation when flipping through the watch is gonna feel a lot snappier, even compared to a watch that's more expensive, like the $300 Polar Vantage M2. Polar is claiming that it's actually about twice as fast as that watch. Now the Pacer comes in cloud white, deep teal, purple dusk, and this black, and they're calling this black night black. And Polar markets this Pacer as a no-nonsense GPS running watch that gives the modern runner all the essentials. But here's the thing. I actually think that this watch goes way above and beyond what a basic GPS running watch does. For example, the Pacer has a running and a walking test that helps determine VO2 max estimations. It's got Polar's Training Load Pro, which helps keep track of how much strain you're putting on your body through workouts. It has Fit Spark, which will give you a suggested daily workout. And the Fit Spark even kind of provides little animations on how to do certain exercises. You've got swimming, biking, and running options. You can even use what they call FuelWise to see, what fuel source you use during your activity. For example, maybe you did like a nice, easy Zone 2 recovery run, and it will show you that you burn more fats than carbohydrates. They also include their sleep stage tracking and nightly recharge, so you can track both how much sleep you're getting and each sleep cycle as you progress through it, and then other metrics like your heart rate variability to kind of give you a better value of how truly recovered you are and just your overall quality of sleep. I'm actually, a huge fan of Polar sleep tracking. I do wish that they graphed those sleep stages in the display on the watch and not just on the Polar Flow app, but I think that's just me being picky. Now, what I think is crazy is that this $200 watch has a multi-sport mode, meaning that you can track a full triathlon with this watch. Garmin watches, currently on the market as of the recording of this video, it typically costs like 2 to 3 times as much as this watch to get a triathlon mode. And we're basically, talking about this watch now because it did take a little while for it to become available, but it is finally shipping. I'll leave a few links below in the description of this video to the best place to buy it. But the Pacer costs $200 as opposed to the Pacer Pro that costs $300, but they're very similar watches. The Pacer is missing a few things like running power, turn-by-turn navigation. It doesn't have a barometer, so it can't do things like hill splitter, which if you're not familiar with, it just kind of keeps track of, how many hills you've done, and it doesn't have Strava live segments. I'm planning on doing another video where I kind of dive a little bit deeper into the exact differences between these 2 watches. I'll leave a link to it, up here somewhere or at the end of this video, if you guys want to check that out as soon as I get that thing put together. Okay, over at the computer here, if we take a quick look at heart rate data, we've got the Garmin Epics here in this light blue color, and that's attached to a chest strap, which should be our most accurate heart rate data here in both the Pacer and the Pacer Pro. Now, both of these look exceptional to me. I think this is actually the best heart rate monitor on a wrist that I've seen from Polar so far in all my testing. So very solid heart rate monitor tracking, but unfortunately when we do move over to GPS, as you can see here, on this particular map file, I do think that, again, the red is tracking a little bit better than the purple here. The blue is tracking the best. Again, the Epix is like $1,000 watch. It does have very good GPS tracking, but between the Pacer and the Pacer Pro, I do think the Pacer maybe tracks just a touch less accurately than the Pacer Pro. Still both fine as far as GPS files goes. I don't think you'll have any problem if you do end up going with the Pacer over the Pacer Pro. But besides the Pacer Pro, there are a few other good GPS watches that fall right into that $200 price point. The Garmin Forerunner 55 has a bit better battery life and it has something that's called track mode, which is really nice if you do spend a lot of time doing, intervals on the track. I have a full video on that. I'll link it up here if you guys want to learn more about that. And then the other watch that might be worth checking out would be the Coros Pace 2. It has an excellent battery. It also has a very nice slim size. It is a very nice, simple, easy to use watch. It also has running power, which might be appealing to some of you guys as well. But ultimately, I do think a lot of people are gonna want a Polar watch just because of that Polar ecosystem. Polar has a very nice Polar Flow smartphone application where you can really dive deep into a ton of different metrics about, training load and recovery, as well as, very detailed information about your activity. And for me personally, this watch has a lot of the basics that I tend to use, like swimming, biking, and running, or good detailed sleep tracking metrics. But it kind of skips out on some of the stuff and the features that I tend to not use too often, like Hill Splitter or the orthostatic recovery test. But if you do want to learn more details on a watch like the Polar Vantage V2 that does have stuff like the orthostatic recovery test, I'll leave a link to that particular video here, as well as another video here just talking about all the details on the Polar Pacer Pro. Either way, be sure to get out there, swim, bike, run, rinse, and then repeat it all over again, and we will see you guys on the next one.